front. She's
Okay.
good.
Good evening. It's Monday, December 15th. It's 6:31. We're in the council chambers. We've got a full crew here tonight. We've got 6 items on the agenda. I'm going to ask Jeff if he has any more to add.
No additions.
How about the committee? Anybody wants to add anything? So we'll start out with item number 1, stormwater utility ordinance. See attachment, and this is also going to be as a first reading on the city council agenda. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, in the memo, I tried to explain what we did here a little bit. We tweaked the ordinance from the discussion that we had 2 weeks ago a little bit, and some of that came from, the question came up about the rate and the amount of impervious surface, and we talked a little bit about following Baxter's example where they just kind of used a flat percentage of 75% impervious in their commercial sites. And as we started taking a look at that and applying the fee structure to it, we kind of thought that it didn't really, we started running into problems on larger parcels that just had a little bit of impervious surface, and really it's really the impervious surface that's causing the runoff, not necessarily the parcel size. So we thought to make this a little bit more equitable, it would be better to tweak it a little bit and come up with a fee structure just based on the amount of impervious surface on the commercial properties. To do that, we also wanted to tie it to residential properties so that in some sense, residential properties and commercial properties are paying about the same rate for the amount of impervious surface that they have on their site. So with that in the ordinance, we used basically defining an equivalent residential lot as a 1/6 acre lot. That's about a 7,000 square foot lot. That's the typical 50 by 140, which we find frequently around town. And then basically estimated about a 50% amount of impervious surface between driveway, sidewalk, roof, garage, and we think, we know we've got some areas of town where they're in the shoreline management district that much impervious surface is not allowed, but we have a lot of lots where we are hitting that, at least 40% impervious surface around town. So we thought just to be a little bit on the conservative side to figure 50% impervious and call that our equivalent residential lot. Then to simplify this moving forward, we thought it would be better to structure the commercial rate so that we're still collecting whatever the residential rate is times the number of equivalent residential lot units on the commercial site. So with that, if a residential lot is 1/6 of a lot, or 1/6 of an acre, half impervious, that would be 1/12 of the parcel impervious. So the factor then that we would use for commercial lots would be the residential unit times the number of 1/12 of an acre units of impervious surface. So in other words, a full acre lot would be 12 units or a $36 fee. And that is consistent with what we talked about before, where if we had a 1 acre lot that was 75% impervious, the rate would still be that $27 per acre would still be $27 that we talked about. The difference would be that if there was considerably less or more impervious surface, then the fee would adjust based on the actual amount of impervious surface. So it just seemed to make it a little bit more equitable instead of blending groups of commercial or different size parcels together. We're individualizing the fee and making it more based on the actual amount of impervious surface on the parcel.
You kind of mirrored Baxter.
Yes. Yep.
On the first one, this
still does. The only difference is going to be in not assuming a 75% impervious. This would just be to instead of assuming a 75%, it would just have the fee based on the actual amount of impervious surface. We think it makes it a little bit more equitable for commercial
properties. We have
properties.
Smaller parcels than Baxter.
Right.
And that's the reason.
I'm kind of missing something here. I think you've explained it, but it didn't quite register.
Okay.
Let's say that you have like the mall, the Northeast Mall, and all their parking lot is impervious.
Right.
As well as they have drainage and things from their roofs and sidewalks, et cetera. How would that be assessed for this?
If we said, let's say the mall property is 5 acres in size, and well, let's say it's, because we know they do have some wetlands, they do have a little green space. Let's say the entire thing is 6 acres, but 5 acres of impervious. We're going to ignore that 6th acre and say it's 5 acres of impervious, and the rate is going to end up being $36 per acre. So their fee would end up being $180 a month.
Okay, and you would never expect to hear me say this, but is that actually enough? Well, all right,
Well,
write it
check your
down.
heart.
But I mean, we collect this for a purpose.
Right. I think it gives it a good start.
Does the fee reflect the cost?
The
I don't want it to exceed the cost.
Right.
But if you're going to have a fee, unless you're saying plus we're subsidizing it X percent, I like to know these details.
The I think at least what this does, it puts residential and commercial property sort of on an equal footing. So I think collectively, if we find in the future that, I think this first off gives us a good start. We think it's going to generate about that extra $100,000 per year
That's
that
what I
we
was
need
gonna
for these
ask you. About
projects.
100?
About 100,000.
Extra or
In addition to what we, from what we currently, not extra, it's not extra, but it's
Yeah,
going
I
to generate an
understand.
additional 100,000 per year. I think at least this gives us a good start, and as we continue to fund our stormwater improvements, I think we can, future councils can kind of make that decision if we have adequate funding or not. What this does, though, is makes it a little bit more simple in that we don't have to, in the future, we don't have to set both a new residential and commercial rate. If we want to adjust anything, all we have to do is adjust the residential rate. If we take that from $3 per residential equivalent to $3.25 or $3.50, then automatically that's going to apply to the commercial fee also. So we're going to keep that same relative participation rate between residential and
what
commercial.
happens if a commercial enterprise, it would also be true of residential, but that isn't so common. What if they then have like stormwater ponds?
Yep.
How do we adjust that?
Within the ordinance, and I think we talked about this at the last meeting, but we do provide up to, or the ordinance does provide up to a 50% credit if they retain all of their runoff on site, or if all of their runoff is not going to our system at all.
How could you
Then we
prove
do
that?
offer up to a 50% credit.
Okay, well, a pond would help with that.
Yep.
But now I'm thinking back to residential too. So what if somebody has a rain barrel and has these gutters that discharge right onto their lawn and that, they don't get any credit?
No, we don't have a provision for residential.
Should.
Well, you're going to make it real sticky.
Well, I'll go along with this, but I don't mean I'll forget it.
Because people are going to put coffee cans out there and be calling Jeff.
Well, people do use rain
Well,
barrels,
yeah.
which is a great idea.
It is a great idea, but they use it for, watering the garden and saving on.
But at least it's not going, the idea is to keep it out of the storm sewer, right,
Yeah.
Jeff?
Or to reuse a portion of it, yes. Mm-hmm.
Right, you
Right.
want to keep it out of
Yep.
the storm sewer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you should not have sidewalk, because that adds. I'm sorry, we're getting off on the wrong foot.
Yes, I'm going to put a hole in your roof.
I know you will.
We got to move on. We got 10 minutes on each one
I'll
of these.
support it.
Okay. How are you,
Yes, yeah.
You got any more questions on it?
No, the only thing is, because rain gardens are becoming more and more, what if a family who had a bigger yard decided to do a big rain garden? And
They should get credit.
Well,
Well, we won't do it in this ordinance, but we can
no,
do
I
something
know.
afterwards.
You asked if I had a question,
Yeah.
that was it.
Oh,
So,
no, I'm with you on that.
That's gonna be
if somebody
more.
puts a lot of effort into being more conservation oriented, there'd be nice to be if there were some ways that we could
I
reward
think
that.
we need to continue to discuss this in the future. I like it.
Mark is shaking his head.
Yeah, I think those would be, I think incentives for rain gardens, that type
Okay.
of thing is good. I think we've got something like that set up for the commercial, and, you know, I think it's worth having the discussion about if there's something we can do with residential.
It's not unusual.
No.
It's not unusual.
No, it shouldn't be.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, we're okay.
Item number 2, request for qualifications, airport utility extension. We have to be done by
I
7.
move that we approve this.
Second. The only
Half-assed and no forward.
question I had is, and I know I asked this before, I apologize for forgetting, but do we look for price only? Do we
This
have
is
to
only
go
qualifications.
below lowest bid?
If I can, in this solicitation, we're not even asking for a price. We're just asking for qualifications. So the process typically would be to receive qualifications, then to have some committee established by the
Okay.
council
Yeah.
to perhaps interview the firms, basically select a firm that we think has the qualifications, and then once we do that, then we would sit down and negotiate a scope of services and an appropriate fee for those services.
Gotcha. In this piece, could we ask for references?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do ask for references.
I didn't see that.
I think we did. Let me,
Past
maybe I
performance
did
of
this.
Key members, firm deliver quality work.
Yeah, but who provides the past performance? If the company does, then they can say anything they
Well-
want. That's the only thing I thought would be, if we can, you know.
References.
Kind of the question is too, who, in terms of who we want to solicit.
Yep.
For this, you know, we've got, you know, 2 or 3 local firms, just depending on how you look at it. We've got SEH and WSN, both certainly qualified to do this type of a project.
Yep.
We also have Bolton Mink that has a office in town. They established an office about 4 years ago, and we've never worked with them, but I know they're a very good municipal services firm. Originally headquartered out of Mankato. They got offices in the cities in St. Cloud, I believe.
Mead Hunt, because they're going to be doing the one at the airport.
Well,
Yeah, they're the new ones at the airport.
at the airport, right.
Yeah, and then they're going to do the design.
They're going to do the airport stuff.
Yeah, which is going to tie into this,
Yep.
which, you know, not a bad idea to throw them in there because they're part of this project on the other end of it.
We can, if that's, I guess that's kind of what I'm, you know, would like to
Well, I think
have some
we need
discussion about who we want to solicit.
We need
Personally,
to go out and solicit.
you know, I think we do have some very qualified firms
Yeah.
locally, and
Yeah. Mead Hunt is going to be, you know, I know they're not, but I mean, being they got the airport, and they also did the dam,
Where are
you
they
know,
from?
Wisconsin. But they got St. Cloud Airport, and, you know, locally they do a lot of the stuff around here. I mean, they do most of the airports and stuff. And I know that they're going to be working on the airport. And I think, I sit on that commission, that it would be just, you know, natural that we would just at least invite them.
Okay.
Or
we could ask them for qualifications.
Yeah.
I guess the timing on this, I've asked for qualifications to be back by Friday, January 16th. Try to give everyone time. The more people that we ask, the busier we are going to be in our office over the next 3 or 4 weeks while firms are trying to do all their background information and trying to get up to speed on the project. So it's,
Good thing you guys don't have much else to do.
yeah, exactly.
So you're going to do 4 firms, WSN, SEH, Bolton, and Mead.
And, okay, and Mead and Hunt, we can.
Is that all? Is that enough?
Well, if we can't find a qualified firm out of that group, then
Well, I expect they're all qualified.
Oh, they're-
I'm just
they
saying
are all
what you
qualified,
want is
yes.
Yeah.
the best at the best cost.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying, think you want. I hope that's
Mm-hmm.
a broad enough spectrum.
Okay. We'll go with that?
All right.
Item number 3, Safe Routes to School grant application. Mary made a motion to approve.
Second?
I have one question, just one question, Gary. The letters that went out to the people on that, because nobody came but one person, did the letters suggest or say, either suggest or say in plain English, that there would be no assessments? Because that issue came up, and Mark kind of had to backtrack a little bit and say, that has not been decided. which is true. So what did the letters say to the people?
I'd have to pull it out. I don't remember exactly the specific language.
Okay, because I'm willing to support this, but if there's going to be a cost to the city, which there would be if we get it, everybody else in this city is paid for it. Everybody. And I just don't think that if we're going to do it, there needs to be at least a portion of it assessed. So that would be my only, and that can, I know, be
We'll wait
decided
until the
later.
grant comes through
Yeah,
and.
but I'm laying
yeah.
it on the table that
That's
I'm not
on
willing
record.
to say the public eats it, because that means the public who's already paid for their sidewalks are now gonna pay for the rest. But I'm willing to support it.
Generally, just to help this out, when you do a street project and if there was sidewalk, 50% of it is the city,
It used to be 100%
you
was
know,
a property.
but doesn't the city usually absorb 50% and the property owner's
Didn't on
50%?
ours.
Or
The,
Not anymore.
not
no,
anymore? Okay,
um,
just checking.
yeah, if,
I have to move along. but-
$8,000.
it's on a, it depends on the project. Typically, when we do a street project now, we're on a street that has sidewalk, under the ADA rules, we are required to make sure that we've got accessibility at the ped ramps. So, since even ped ramps that we were building up to 2 years ago are no longer ADA compliant, so when we replace those, we have been writing, fortunately, we haven't had too many projects where we've had to do this, but, you know, we have not been assessing that cost. That's ended up being a local
That I
cost because
can
it's just at the
understand.
corner.
I think the city's always paid, I think, for the immediate intersection.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But what's right by your property, you
Yeah.
pay
Yeah,
for.
property owners pay for
And it
that.
wasn't that many years ago, Marion, I'm sure you were here, that we went around and, you know, found sidewalks that were cracked and
Yes,
stuff and
yes.
made those people pay for them and
I
fix
was
them.
on that,
We were
uh,
enforcement.
north side.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
But I'm willing to go, it's a long time in advance. But some of those things probably should be talked about in the next year.
Throw it out.
My only quick note question is, the third paragraph, that last sentence, the board was asked about its willingness to cost share, 140 grand. The response from the board was not immediately required, so no response was provided.
From the school
That's the
board.
school.
Right. So, would we, if the school board voted to not support this, it's a lot of money, what kind of difference would that make? Seems, do we go into this knowing they may not? That's okay.
Well, the school board is supporting the project,
Well,
but it's
I'm sure.
the issue of whether or not they're going to participate in the cost share with us down when it comes to that point in time.
okay.
So at this point, we're anticipating that we're doing the 20% assessment unless we can sit down with them and talk something different.
Yeah, and the only time the school has ever been involved is when it was dealing with their properties, on their
right,
properties,
right.
and they were not, then usually ventured from that, so.
It is called Safe Routes to
but-
School.
Like I said, this is 2019, and there's a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of
a ways
homework to
off.
do for the 140. We're just trying to move
It's a
something along.
ways
see where it
Okay,
goes.
second.
Item number 4, I got 10 minutes for 3 more. Vacant building survey.
Yeah, that was it.
It's always, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it's always kind of nice to take a look at your city and get an understanding of what type of vacancy rates we have on our industrial and commercial property. And the only way to do that is to physically go out and take a look around and come back and do the homework. Last time we did this was in 2009, and so 5 years later, 2014, we've done another one. As you can see, we grouped it into categories. The inclusion of the Brainerd Industrial Center, 700,000 square feet of vacant space, skews the vacant industrial total quite a bit. You could almost, if you wanted to have a separate category of you could take 700,000 out of the 1.1 total, 1.1 million square feet total. So over half of that is Brainerd Industrial Center. We've also done a calculation of how much square footage is vacant downtown. And there's about 50,000 square feet of vacant building space in downtown Brainerd. What's downtown? What I did was correlated it with the central business district zoning on the zoning map and used that as just as a guide. If you're wondering how much 50,000 square feet is, a city block is 300 by 300, which is 90,000 square feet. So the 50,000 square feet is what, just a little over half a block worth of empty buildings when you put them all together.
FedEx's building's gonna be 45,000 that they're gonna build, so, yeah.
So, just a snapshot in time to know what we ran. We did discuss this with Close Converse and got their input to see if we missed anything, and they thought we were pretty thorough. So it's just an idea and a snapshot of where we're at.
Yeah, if I took the 700,000 out of the number, we would be at 452. And you said in 2009 we were 500, so 500 and what?
Down a little end.
Yeah, so we're actually down if we took that one out
Yep.
from 2009.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Great, we'll move right along. We're down to 7 minutes.
Keep it
Special
at it.
assessments / citation appeal 1309 Quince.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, the individual with the doing the appeal is not going to be here this evening. He called late this afternoon from Fargo and said that the weather conditions would prevent him from getting here. Basically, I think his case is pretty well summed up in his letter dated December 3rd. Basically, what he's asserting is that that he did the siding on the garage as a result of having received a paint and repair notice, and he did it with the belief that he already had a permit in place from when he took out a permit to side the principal structure back in 2004. The building department staff put together a chronology of events on the property. The basically what we've determined is that he did not do the project as a result of a paint and repair order, but rather we caught wind of it when the code enforcement intern drove by the property and saw an accumulation of debris that was the result of the siding project. Issued a nuisance complaint, and then through some follow-up it was discovered that the individual had not taken out a permit to do the siding on the detached garage. And again, the permit for the principal structure was dated 2004. That work was like 9 years prior to this. He claims that he thought the permit was still good and that he could still side the garage with it, but no, that was not the case. The kind of what happened with that, there was when we determined there was not a siding permit, the building official issued a stop work order. A week later, there was another letter issued that mentioned again that he had to come in and take out or get an after-the-fact building permit for the siding, and if he failed to do so, that a citation would be issued. After a week or so passed and still had not heard from the individual, a citation was issued. A few weeks later, a second citation, and a few weeks after that, a third citation. Finally, he did come in December and acquired the after-the-fact permit. Again, within his letter, he states that he contacted the office and had made arrangements to come in December to get the permit. When we were issuing the citations, it was because we had not heard from the individual. So I think from, the person with the appeal there, I think their letter kind of speaks for itself. From staff's perspective, I think we were following the ordinance and issuing the citations appropriately.
I tried to call Todd at the 763-509-9992, and when I called it, that number's not in service. So then I dug in back here and found another number, and that number was not in service to call him. So I had a tough time, I stopped by his place, took some pictures, and then my mind was, at least he should have an adequate number to be working with, especially the recent one on December 3rd. But, so I have no contact with him at all, and I was bothered by the fact that he left a number that's not in service, and I dialed it twice just to make sure. With that, I didn't do any more homework with it, because if he's not there to defend himself, which, like, in this case, he's not here either, I'm not going to go any further with it.
I would let it go. We had a meeting, and I think this is appropriate to bring this out, because a citizen made an excellent point. We had a meeting last week on this fence issue, and there were a number on the fence issue. Remember, we had this little committee, and a number of the department heads were there, and a bunch of people, quite a few people were there, or several. And one man, I thought, made an absolutely, I thought, this is so common sense, why do we forget it? And he said, I think you're wasting an awful lot of staff time on this. He said, your staff gets very good salaries, and they have a lot of important work to do. And he said, as a citizen, it kind of bugs me that you waste staff time on stuff like this. And I thought about that afterwards. And I thought, he's got a point. He's got a point. And I think maybe, look at all we got on this. Maybe we're wasting staff time. Go over and look at it. Gary's got pictures. The pictures that Gary has look good. Mm-hmm. I don't know what we're complaining about. It looks nice on the pictures Gary has. Let it go. Why find the guy? I mean, jeez, I'm not going to vote.
I have to go with staff because they got the time involved. And the thing is, if we start doing that,
it's a waste of time.
Yeah, it's just like telling the police officers that's too much time pulling people over. So let's not do that no more.
No, it's not.
And that's what they're here for, enforcement. And you can't just, especially what you're saying right now. But go ahead, Mark.
Speaking of enforcement, Mr. Nedberger is going to be getting a letter from me as well.
Well, now what did he do?
Well, he has got a duplex. This property is a duplex in a B1 zoning district. B1 permits only single-family residential dwelling. It's up to this point it's been considered a legal nonconformity, but he does not have rental licenses for the units, and if he does not take out 2 rental licenses by May 31st, he's not going to be able to get a second license for that property.
Is that this property?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I turned this.
Yep.
Well, this is a different one. This is over on Quinn Street.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
But he will be getting a letter from
But he will be getting a letter from me.
but
That's a
it's
different
not
property.
on
I'm
Quinn,
sorry.
not on Quinn Street.
I'm sorry. No.
This one was turned in last summer for a
Yep.
nuisance complaint,
My mistake.
also for garbage and junk and stuff like that. It's cleaned up now, and that's why I took the pictures. But he's been a headache, from the history here, and I have to support staff on this. They do their darndest, and I know we and you always have this
That's all right.
enforcement
That's
issue,
okay.
but I have to at least support staff on this.
I am respectful of your
Yeah.
position. I just, after reading it and looking at
Yeah.
all the stuff here, and I thought, what a waste of staff.
But if you look at all this on there, had this been just one, you can go, but when you look at the history, this is a rap sheet that goes a long, long way, a lot of staff time into this.
That's the whole point.
And we have to send a message to staff here also that we gotta back them when they go through this much work.
Well, it depends on.
That's what they're there for.
Oh, you go ahead, do your thing. I don't care, but I'm not going to support it.
Okay.
That's me, I'm sorry.
Item number 6, we'll jump right past, we know what's coming out of that one. Enforcement action summary. I had asked for a 2013, I didn't see that. I called Nathan to see what the difference was between the 2 years. I did bring one that I had previously, but looks like we're pretty similar.
Yeah.
Jeff?
I think it's pretty similar, yes.
Okay.
I think we had a slightly different groupings of properties. I think this year we had a few less long grass and weeds, maybe a few more property maintenance violations. I think about the same number of junk and debris, but I think it was fairly consistent with well, I think it was fairly consistent with last year's.
Yeah, I did get I kept the one from 2013, and at this point, there was a total of 1,115 as of 10/29/2013. So, as of the end of October last year, we were higher, a little bit higher than this, but it seems like overall they're very similar.
Yep.
What's the difference between address numbers and premises identification? Well, address numbers is at the top, 41, and then down about 2/3 of the way down, premises identification, 1. And I would just think that was the same thing.
I would think they're probably the same thing.
Okay.
And last year, they had 28
Okay,
on the
one might be-
address numbers and 4 on the
You
year
know,
before.
I think address numbers are really important.
Oh.
I think we should begin, maybe next year, making a little push, information out first, not just cracking people
Yep.
around. But, and they're so important for fire and police and just everything. So,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm with you on that.
Okay.
How much hassle would it be possible to see what percent of this is rental units?
Yeah, we could break that out. We could have Scott or Nathan, I think, break that out so that we could actually see. Well, let's see.
By and large.
You know, that stat the other night by Connie, where our income, property income, is only 13% from rental units, but they consume 50% of the city. And then when I was thinking about this enforcement action, how important that is to bring that level up. I mean, here you are, half of your city is rental units, and they're only bringing in 13% of the property tax. Because, like she said, they're on the low end, they're not taxed very much. And if we don't keep an eye on that, that does hurt our city
I
tremendously.
think you need to look into that a little further. Rental property pays a much higher rate. So I don't know what Connie looked at, or I'm a little questioning what she came out with, but I'm certainly
Yeah.
not saying she's incorrect, but there are different ways, I guess you could figure it. But rental property pays a much higher rate.
Exactly.
And so my guess is that if you compared the residential and the rental in Brainerd, that the rental might be paying even more. But I think we need more work on that. Some of them are low cost, and there are some very nice rentals in the city.
I've been working with the police chief to sort through data on police calls to owner-occupied versus rental property.
Okay.
And we've got a lot of data put together with that. We've come up with some very interesting findings. And I'll talk to the chief about that before we do any talking about that data.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm going to get more information because I know that,
We do need it.
we do need
We do need it.
whatever, look at the
You're right.
expense, the
Right.
rental property brings, with code enforcement and everything else, and, we need that property and that information.
If you
Not
wouldn't mind
everybody.
putting together
Money online.
that would be pretty interesting to me.
This would just be citations. No, this is just citations and cases. This does not include our normal rental inspection program.
No,
So,
right.
or even correction orders. So I think this is just the number of violations that we've experienced.
You gotta keep in mind that rental properties are
So I don't have to say anything.
Right.
property maintenance is all next.
Exterior, right?
Right.
This one here.
Right.
this- I read it.
But just for my own
Oh, yeah.
curiosity, I'd like to see that.
I think if it please.
Another number that I thought would
Probably
be
a
interesting to learn would
But
be.
I think he has a right.
I'll wait
he
till
may
these
have-
guys are done.
I'm sorry, Chip. Excuse us. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tim. I apologize.
Yeah, me too.
Come on, you can get it. How many rental properties are there in the city of Brainerd that are owned by people who don't live here? I'm thinking about this guy that we just got done discussing. He lives down the city somewhere.
Fargo, no.
I don't know why that, I think that would be interesting to learn. How many people own property here that they rent out? Maybe they come here once a year and just see if it's still standing.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but we have absentee landlords, but I thought we had a provision in our code that required that if they were not living within a certain proximity, that they needed to have a local representative. And I don't know that this individual does.
You have to have a local representative within a certain area.
Yeah, or within a certain response time.
Then,
That is a hard thing to track.
Yes,
does
it
this
is.
guy have a local representative?
I can't say with certainty on that.
Okay, can we have that checked? Okay, thanks. And